My name is First question. And for this session, we're dealing with the 2020 mathematics objective test solutions. Kindly get your books, your pens, stay back whilst we solve each of these questions. So we'll take our first question, which is write 1930.54 in a standard form. In a standard form. Right, and then the options given that we have to choose from. We all know the standard form is a way of writing numbers, especially large numbers into small ones, so that we can have a consistent format. So it also involves representing a number as a product um, of numbers between 1 and 10. So what we do is we move the point to the very first non-zero digit to keep it between the numbers 1 and 10. So considering the question, we have 91930.54 and we are being asked to write that in the standard form. And we're saying that we move our decimal point to the very first non-zero digit. The very first non-zero digit. And when we look through the figures that we have here, the very first non-zero digit is 1. Okay, and it falls between 1 to 10. So what happens is we count the steps to which we send our decimal point to the very first non-zero digit. So we have that as 1, 2, and then 3. So it takes 3 steps. And then for standard form, when we move our point from right to left, it is positive. So we should note that right to left, we have to the power, the 10 to 8 power becomes positive, whilst from left to right is negative. So in this case, we have it moving in 3 steps. So we have 1.93054. 1.93054. Then times our 10. Okay, because we mentioned that in between 1 and 10. So our first non-digit 0 and then times the base of 10 to a power. And that power is the number of steps we move our point to its first non-zero digit. And as we counted, as mentioned earlier, if we move our point from right to left, it is positive, and from left to right is negative. Since we moved it from right to left, we are going to have it to be positive, and we have 1, 2, 3. So it means we are having 1.93054 times 10 raised to the power 3 as our answer. So when you look through the options, we have that as B. Kindly go through it again and solve with me as I solve. We move on to our next question, that is question 2, is that for what value of x is 3x, 3 raised to the power x equal to 81. So for what value of x is 3 raised to the power x is equal to 81? Now with our solution, This question is a classical indices question. Indices question where we have to change the biggest number here to the base of what we are looking out for. So we have 3 raised to the power x is equal to 81. So what happens that we are going to change 81 to the base of 3. Then we can equate our x to whatever power that 81 may have. Right, so without ask ourselves, we know that 3 raised to the power x, we are going to have 81. The number of times 3 can multiply itself to give us 81. Realize that that is going to be 4 times. That is 3 raised to the power 4. That is to say that 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That is 3 by 3, we have 9, and then by 9, which gives us 81. Now the bases are all the same, so the only thing we do is we equate the powers as per the rules of indices. So we have x is equal to 4. X is equal to 4. I repeat again, we look out for the base. The simplest base here is 3 raised to the power x, and then we have 81. We're going to look, the first question we ask ourselves, how many times of that least base number would multiply itself to give you the number that they have here. So this shows that if we multiply 3 4 times, you are going to get 81. So we have to look out for the variable x. So we now converted the 81 into its indices form. Then we realize that it takes 4 times of the 3 to give us 84. Now that the bases are the same, we just proceed to equate the powers. Then from there we had x is equal to 4, which is our final answer. Then we have from our options as B. We then move on to our next question, the third. Third question says that a car travels 36 kilometers in an hour. Find its speed in meters per second. A car travels 36 kilometers in an hour. Find its speed in meters per second. And then the options are below. 36. Sorry. Multiply our 36 by 1,000 to give us it in meters. So we are going to multiply that 36 by 1,000. So we now have 36,000 meters. We also do our conversion of our 1 hour to seconds. We know that an hour, or even 60 minutes, is equal to an hour, while a minute is also equal to 60 seconds. Now for this case, we are dealing with an hour converting to seconds. So now what happens here is, we know that an hour is 60 minutes, and 1 minute is 60 seconds. So if 1 minute is 60 seconds, then 60 minutes will now be x. From our basic math, we know that it becomes 60 by 60 equal to 1 minute times the x. So then we have 3,600 is equal to 1 times x, and then that is x. Alright? So then this means that it requires in every hour there is 3,600 seconds. So for every hour we have 3,600 seconds. We now proceed to solving the question. Let speed to distance over time converted we've done the conversion from the meters, from the kilometers to meters, and then also from the hour to seconds. So we have our speed to be 36000 over, that is meters, over 3600 seconds. Cancel out with our zeros. Then we know that 36 would go, I would divide 360 10 times. And then our speed now remains as 10 meter per second, which is our option A. Kindly pause or playback if there's any confusion anywhere. Just bear in mind, you would have to read the question carefully. That is, a car travels 36 kilometers in an hour, and you are being asked to find its speed in meters per second. So for the kilometers in an hour, we know that we have kilometers, so we are changing that to meters, and then the seconds, the hour, we're also changing that to seconds. Very important for us to note. So we did the conversions and later found for that. So we now move on to our fourth question. And the question says that if n over 100 is equal to 10.5, then find the value of n. Or the question number, there should be question 4. Saying n over 100 was 10.5. Asking us to find the value n. So this is a change of subject question. So when we look through, we know that n over 100 and then 10.5 is also over 1. We do our cross multiplication. There are two ways in solving this. We do our cross multiplication where we have 10.5 times 100 equals to n times 1. where 10.5 times 100 gives us 1050, and then n times 1 gives us n. So in here we have the value of n to be 1050. Second method, as n over 100 equals 10.5. And in here we multiply through by 100. Multiply through the equation by 100. So for this side times 100, and then for this side to by 100. So this 100 goes inside 1 and goes into this side to 1. So we have 1 times n being n, and then we have 10.5 by 100. That also leaves us with the answer 1050, which is our option A. Question states that if a trader made a profit of 10% in selling a shirt for 44 Ghana cedis, find the cost price. If a trader made a profit of 10% in selling a shirt for 44 Ghana cedis, find the cost price. So this solution requires us that when we take our data, we have the selling price. That is the SE, 44, 00. Then we have the profits the trader made to be 10%. And for the cost price is what we are here to look out for. From this case, our solution is going to be for the selling price, that is the SP, would that be, and that is going to be 110 over 100 by the cost price. One may ask why 110. Now, normally the selling price is, if we want to find the margins, we're going to have the selling price to be the cost price plus the profit of the cost price of cost price. And we know that for the selling, what is happening is the cost price for this, if you read through the question, if a trader made a profit of 10% in selling a shirt, that means an extra 10 of the percentage. That is, if at the end of the day to just make 100% profit, he made 10 extra. So at last, if his cost price is supposed to be 100, he made 10% of the 100%, he made 10% extra. That is what 10%. So what we are having now is going to be 110%. So in inputting that, we now know that so our actual selling price that we are aware of, that is the 44 Ghana cedis, equal to the 110 over 100, that is the 110% with regards to the 10% increment or the 10% profit margin that he made times the cost price. So we know that this is also over 1, so we have 44 and we're going to have 110 CP over 100. This is also over 1. We do our cross multiplication. Then we have 110 the cost price by 1, that equal to 44 Ghana cedis times the 100. For this side, we are going to continue having 110 of the cost price equal to 4400. We divide through by 110, then finally we have our cost price to be as 11 into 440 is going to be 40. And since we are dealing with Ghana cedis, it's going to be CPGH Ghana cedis 40, and that is the D answer. Kindly take your time and go through the solution as seen to understand. We then also move on to the 6th question. So with us, that we should simplify one whole number 1 over 5 divided by 2 whole number 1 over 10. In this, we have our solution. So we have 1 whole number 1 over 5 divided by 2 whole number 1 over 10. One whole number 1 over 5 divided by 2 whole number 1 over 10. We are going to change this fractions into an improper fraction. Let's make fractions into improper fractions. And we know that the first thing is to multiply the denominator by the whole number here, that is 1. So 5 times the 1 is 5 plus the numerator, which is 1, is going to give us 6 over 5. We have 10 by 2, which is 20, times plus the numerator, which is 1, that is going to be 21. We have 21 over 10. This is a division question, and then we do what we call reciprocation of the second term. So we have 6 over 5, the reciprocate. We are going to have times 10 over 21. So in that, we are going to have 6 times 10 over 5 times 21. When you multiply these, you're going to have 60 over 5 times the 21 is 105. Now this can be further, we can further break it down. The 15 would divide 64 times, and then 15 would also go divide 105 7 times. So then our final answer is going to be 4 over 7, which is option A. We now move on to our 7th question. The volume of a cylinder is 40 pi centimeter cube. If the height of the cylinder is 10 centimeters, find the base radius. The volume of a cylinder is 40 pi centimeter cube. If the height of the cylinder is 10 centimeters, find the base radius. So then we go ahead with our solution. So for this question, it's telling us to find the base radius. Okay, and the question says that the volume of a cylinder is 40 pi centimeter cube. If the height of the cylinder is 10 centimeters, you are asked to find the base radius, and the options are given below. Now, the first thing is for us to note down our formula for the volume of a cylinder, and that is V is equal to the pi r squared h. That is the pi times the radius squared times the height. And in here, our data, we have our volume to be 40 pi centimeter cube. We have the height to be 10 centimeters, and then we have the radius of which we don't know. So now we substitute the values into the. So for the V, which is the volume, it is 40 pi cm. We still have our pi, the radius that we don't know, and then the height, which is, so all multiplying by 10. So we'd end up having 40 pi by, if you multiply all through, to the 10 pi r, and pi r squared, sorry, pi r squared. We are going to divide through, since we are looking for the base radius, which is r. To making sure that r stands alone, we divide through by the coefficient of r squared, which is a 10 and then a pi. So you have 10 pi through with 10 pi. So we'll end up having r squared equals 40 pi over 10 pi. The pi would cancel itself, 0 goes into 0, it cancels 0. Then we're going to have r squared given as 4 over 1, which ends up being 4. Now we are asked to find the radius and not radius squared. And since it's a squared, we find the square root. To take out the square, we find its square root. And we do that for both sides. So we have root of pi r squared, and then the root of 4. Then we know that the squared cancels the root sign, so giving us just r. And if we want to find the root of 4, two numbers that multiply itself to giving you 4. So the root of 4 is going to give us what? 2. And since its measurement is centimeters, since we are dealing with volume, the base, the radius is going to be 2 centimeters, which is our option D. Now we go to our eighth question. Our eighth question. Eighth question says that the longest chord of a circle is there. The longest chord of the circle is there. So in here we have a sector, segment, circumference, and diameter. If we have about the segment, if we have a circle where a point connects to the other, that is a chord and its arc. A chord and its arc. This point A and point B are called the segment. So you have the minor and the major segment. Okay, its arc. Whereas the sector has to do with two radii. So this is for a segment, and for a sector, we would have to do with two radii and its arc. Whereas a segment is a chord. And I told you a chord earlier is a line that joins 2 points on a circle. Then finally, we look at circumference. Circumference is actually the total or the distance around the entire circle. So the distance around an entire circle for circumference what you have is, if you have a circle, total distance or the distance around the entire circle is called the circumference. And also from our question, it's saying that the longest chord. Now realize that the circumference is the total distance and it doesn't do with any point, a line, okay, that joins 2 points in a circle. The nearest one that we could even consider would maybe a segment, but for this, it is not even the longest because it could either be the minor or a major segment. But when we consider a diameter, where it actually divides the circle into two equal halves, that is one radius and radius coming together, 2 points, and it cuts the circle into a pivot. So you see that as even the longest, because the others could either be a major or a minor, or they could be smaller in any way. But for a diameter, is always the longest because it's always going to cut across the circle, whether big or small, and it's actually going to divide it into the perfect half. That. So for this question 8, the right answer would be for diameter. I hope that was explained well for you to understand the various components. That is a sector, a segment, circumference, and then a diameter. Now we'll move on to our 9th question. So with our 9th question, we have if x is equal to b squared minus 4ac over 2a, find x when a is equal to 2, b is equal to negative 4, and then c is equal to negative 2. So what this question is telling us to do is we are going to substitute the values of all the variables within the equation just to find for x. So in here we know that x here is b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then for the values of a is 2, b is negative 4, and c is negative 2. So we substituted the values of a, b, and c into the equation to find for x. So that x becomes, with the value of b, which is 4, so 4 into bracket raised to the power 2, and the 4 brackets, which we have 2, and then c is negative 2. All over 2 into bracket 2. So now x becomes 4 by 4, which is 16, minus we have the bracket, which is going to be negative 4, right? We have 4 into bracket negative 4 over 2, 2. We have x, we have 16. We have negative 4 by negative 4, we are going to get positive 16 again. We have 2 by 2, where we are going to have 4. So now x now is going to be 16 plus 16 over 4. So we have 32 divided by 4. where 32 4 goes into itself 1 and goes into 32 8 times. So therefore x is equal to 8 as our final answer. And as seen in the options, we have it as D. Now we'll move on to the next question, the 10th question. It says that the ratio of farmers to children in a village is 13 is to 11. The ratio of farmers to children is 13 is to 11. And if there were 312 farmers in the village, how many children were there? If the ratio of farmers to children in a village is 13 is to 11, if there were 312, that's 312 farmers in the village, how many children were there? How many children were there? So we now move on to our solution. If we have the ratio of farmers to children as 13 is to 11, if there were 312 farmers, how many children were there? Now, so by the ratio that we have here, 13 is to 11. For 13 is for the farmers was 11, is for the children that was there. So in simple ways, you can say that if indeed its ratio, farmers ratio is 13, and the total number of farmers in there were 312 farmers. And then for a ratio of 11, which is for children, we are here to find children. So it becomes the x number of children. Now when you do a cross multiplication, this to this, this to that, we're going to have 11 by 312 by 13 times what to the x, that is the actual number of children. So in here, I'm going to have 11 by 312 minus 312 as 3,432 by 13x. Divide through, since we're looking for the number of children, which is x, you have by divided by 13 and divided by 13. So now 13 will go into 3,432 to 264 times. So therefore we have x to be 264, which is our option C. On to 11th question. This seems to have been repeated. We'll come to figure it out and come back to this question. So let's move on to the 12th question. Which says that what is the length of the side of a square of area 225 centimeters squared? What is the length of the side of a square of area 225 cm squared? That's centimeters squared. If we consider this question, what is the length of the side of a square of area 225? We know that the area of a square is square of its side, the square of its both sides or its sides. And for this question, for our data, we have our area to be 225. Our area has already been given as 225 centimeters. Whilst for the sides is unknown, so we can denote that by x. We know that for a square, all its sides are equal. That is why the area of a square it is what the square of its side. The square of its side. So that since we know that, so the area of a square is squared of its sides. And we know that its sides we are denoting that with x. So you have area of a square of this square to be what x is the power 2. Now, so we have our area already in our data to be 225 centimeters squared by x. Since we are looking for each of the sides, we will just find the square root of both sides since we want to look for x and not x squared. So the squared cancels the root sign, so you have x, and then the square root of 225 is 15 centimeters. And that is our option A. And that is our 12th question. So we now move on to our 13th question for consideration. So for the question 13, rule of a mapping is 2x squared minus 1. The x that what number does x equal to 2 map to? So the rule of a mapping is 2x squared minus 1. What number does x equal to 2 map to? We have the options 3, 9, 7, and 8 to choose. This is stated that we have to substitute the value of x, which is 2, into the rule of the mapping, which is 2x squared minus 1. What is saying that wherever we see variable x, we put 2, right? So now we are having 2 x bracket 2 power 2 minus 1. So in this case, we're going to have the rule of board mass. We're dealing with the one in the brackets first. So we have 2 raised to the power 2, which is going to be 4. So we have 2, 4 minus 1. So then we have 2 by 4, which is 8 minus 1. Then we end up having 7. So therefore, it means that per the rule 2x squared minus 1, x, if x is 2, then it maps to 7. If x is 2, x is equal to 2, it maps to 7. So that is our answer C. So we now move on to our next, that's the fourth. So for question 108 as a product of prime factors. Of prime factors. Do the solution 108 as prime factors? Step by step, we are going to factor step by step. That is, we would keep dividing until we get 1. So from this, and it also mentions the prime factors. So you have 108 as the number we are yet to express as a product, of prime factors. So at the end we should have the product or the factors of 108 that are prime, and they should be a product, so they must be multiplying each other as well. Now, so the first step we are going to do is by dividing 108. First step is to divide 108 by 2. Since 108 is an even number, dividing that by 2, so we have 108 divided by 2, which is clearly going to give us 54. 54. Now the second step is to further divide this 54, also divide 54 by 2, since it's also an even number. There's also an even number, so we are dividing that. And the result is going to be 27. Now for 27, we realize that it is not divisible by 2. So what happens is we don't have a factor that would divide 27 perfectly. And when we look through, we know that 3 would do such. So now we're also going to further divide 27 by 3, which 27 is going to give us 9. We do see for the result, that is a 9, also 9 divided by its factor 3, which is going to give us 3. Then finally, since we have 3 also divides itself, we have 1 as a final. So now, what happens is, if others want to write this, they can choose to do it this way. 108, we have 108, which is an even number. 2 goes into 8, and we have what, 54. So divided, so we have 54. And then 54 also divided by 2, we get to 27. So we are putting the 2 in brackets, in circles. And then for the 27, it's also further divided by 3, which gives us 9. 9 also being divided by 3, that gives us 3, and then 3 also divided by 3, 1. All this connects to the 108. Now, in writing it as a product of prime factors, now what happens is we now look at the factors that divided this 108 until we had 1. Realize that the two factors that did that were 2 and 3. Now, the question we ask ourselves is, how many times did 2 divide until we couldn't do anymore? Realize that from in here, looking at the example illustration B, this illustration A, realize that I circled 2 times of the 2 doing the division or dividing perfectly. So for 2, divided perfectly 2 times. So we do it 2 raised to the power 2. There's also saying a product. We know that product is multiplication. And then for 3, we have 1, 2, 3 times of its division. So they started dividing 27, then they broke it down to 9. The 3 further broke 9 into 3, and also did the same until we had 1 that we can't do anything about anymore. So realize that for 3, it came in 3 times. So for the power number 3, it came in what? 3 times. That is 2 raised to the power 3. Same as this, we see 2 dividing 108, so dividing 54. Then they couldn't do any more until they started with 3 dividing 27, 3 dividing 9, and 3 dividing 3 until we had 1. So same 2 raised to the power 2 by 3 raised to the power 3. That's our final answers. They are the same, So either this or that. So we look in there and we see our option D as our answer. We're going to move on to our 15th question. Express, we should express 15 is to 12 in the form 1 is to n is to 12 in the form 1 is to n. 15 is to 12, 1 is to n. 15 is to 12 in the form 1 is to n. Now what happens is, what we have 15 is we are going to use the first factor, that is the 15, we are going to divide through this ratio. So we have 15 is to 12, we are going to divide both sides of the ratio by the first factor, dividing both sides by the first factor, which is 15, 15 over 50, and then the 12 over 50 as well. Say that the first step is for us to divide through by the first factor in here, that is 50. So we divide this 50 by 50 and also this 50 by the 12. So we goes into this one and goes into the other side also 1. We have 1 over 1 giving us 1. So 1 is to 12 over what? 50. Now, so the 12 over 50, we realize that if we are to break down 12 over 15, we are going to get 0.8. 0.8. So 12 over 15 in the next decimal form is 0.8. So therefore, 15 is to 12 in the form of 1 is to n, 1 is to 0.8. So the first one, the first step is to divide through by the first factor of the ratio, which is 15 in this case, throughout, then it will be in this form. So final answer therefore is 1 is to 0.8. It is our answer D. Question. Given that we are negative q a point at the gradient of the line joining P to Q. Find the gradient of the line joining P to Q. Sorry. Find the gradient. X to x to now from the point P has given 3 and then to be negative 2. The first values are always x, x value, x1, y1, and for q as well as x2 and then x y2. x2. So since that is clear, we can now move on to say, since we know our y2 is from q, that is 4 minus the value of y1 within p, which is put into bracket -2, and in here it is 2, all over, then we have our x2 to -2, also minus our x1, which is 3. Now we go ahead to do our addition and subtraction. The negative by negative is positive, so we're going to have 4 plus 2. So this multiplies with negative 2 by the rule of odd math. Then we have -2 by -3, only 2, and you borrowed extra 3, so you have -5. In that we are going to have 6, 4 plus 2 is 6 over -5. -5. Which, when we look through our gradient of the line, therefore, gradient of the line for these 2 points P and Q, line P and Q, is 6 over -5, or you can write that -6 over 5. It's all similar, or it's actually the same, sorry. And when we look through our options, that is option C. Option C. Now we move on to question 17. Question 17 says that a shop is rented at 9 cedis per month, and we are asked that how much money is paid in 1.5 years. 1.5 years. A shop is rented at 9 cedis per month, and we are being asked how much money is paid in 1.5 years. And then the options are given below to choose from. Now, the first thing we need to consider is, says that the rent per month is 9 Ghana cedis. Ghana cedis. And they're asking us to calculate the money, how much money is paid if she's to pay in 1.5 years, or how much she paid for 1.5 years of rental. Now we know that our conversions, okay, 1 year is equal to 12 months. And for this case, they're saying 1.5, so a half year will definitely be half of the 12 months, which is going to be 6 months. So if 1.5 years together would be 12 plus 6, that is a total, and that is going to give us 18 months. 18 months. So it means, therefore, 1.5 years is equal to 18 months. So now that we know our 18 months, and we know that for 1 year, every month she's to pay, so per our solution, sorry, if every month, so every 1 month, she pays 9 cedis, 9 Ghana cedis, how much will she pay in 18 months? That we don't know. So we did that X. We do our cross multiplication. Let me rewrite this again. If 1 month per month she pays 9 Ghana cedis, how much will she be paying in 18 months? That is what we are here to find. So we do our multiplication. So we have 9 by the 18 months, go to the 1 times the x. Then we continue. We know that 9 by 18 is 162 to 1 by x is x. So alas, therefore, she pays 162 Ghana cedis for 18 months or 1.5 years. And that is our option A. Hope that is well explained and understood. Go to the 18th question. And for this case, it's a question that requires us to use the diagram to answer 18 and 19. Question 18 and question 19. And it says that, not drawn to scale, if in the diagram A and B is parallel to D and E, that is to say, angle ABC is 81 degrees. That means it is for angle B, and then angle DCE is 20 degrees. And we are asked to use this information to answer question 18 and 19. The first one, the question 18, is now asked us, what is the value of x? What is the value of x with regards to the diagram? The value of x. Now, if we want to consider this, so from angle from ABC, triangle ABC, triangle demarcated with yellow, ABC. Angle B from the yellow side has angle degrees, while C, since it connects both, we should realize that they are parallel lines, both sides. That's line A and B, and then D and E are parallel to each other. Angle C is 20 degrees. 20 degrees. Now, since we know this, we know A for ABC, angle C is 20, angle B is 1, and then the other angle is Y, that is for angle BAC. So angle A, if we want to say, is what Y. Now, we know that angles within a triangle sums up to 180. So angles within a triangle sums up to 180. So we have 180 equals 81 plus 20 plus Y. We have then we are now going to get 101 plus Y. So now we continue when we want to group like terms. We have 81 when 101 crosses the equal sign becomes negative. 101 equal to Y. So we have our Y value here to be 79 degrees. That's for our first 79 degrees for our first triangle. Now, if it comes to the next one, located with red, the triangle. Now we know that our Y value is now 79 degrees. Don't forget because we just found for that. Now, so from yes, I should use red. So from angle CDE or triangle CDE, we know that for angle C, as already stated vertically opposite, C is still 20 degrees. Now for angle E, vertically opposite angles are equal. So we have 79 being for angle E, right? So we have angle E 79 degrees. Then we have our final angle, which is angle D, also given as X. So X, which is X that we have to look out for. If we consider the same thing as a triangle, then they have sum up to 180, all the angles within sums up to 180. We have 180 equals 20 plus 79 degrees plus X. So we have 180 equals we have 79 plus 20 giving us 99 plus X. If we group like this, we have 180 minus 99 equals X. So when we do subtraction, we are going to get X being 81 degrees. So when we look out for all this, our answers, we got y to be 79 degrees and then x to be 81. So from our first question, what was the value of x? So that's our C. When we move on, move on to the next one, which is find the value of y. As we did in the other slide, we realized that we got 70 degrees, 79 degrees. So x was 81, whilst y was 79. So to our 20th question. To our 20th question, we have, what is the probability that a number greater than 5 shows up when a die is thrown? What is the probability that a number greater than 5 shows up when a die is thrown? So when we look at this question, we know that for a die has how many sides? 6 sides. Every die has 6 sides. That is 1 through to 6. And I'm saying that what is the probability that a number greater than 5? So we know that all the numbers 1 through to 4 are lesser than 5, but the one greater than 5 is 6. So the probability that when we throw it, we would get a 6, or a number that is greater than 5 in the case of a 6-sided die is just once. So if the total sides are 6 and the number greater than 5 per the die is 6 and it's just 1, our probability then now is going to be 1 over 6. That is once. It may show up just 1 out of what the 6 sides that it has. So in this case, we have A to be our answer. Hope that was well explained and understood. We move on to our next question. Right? The question 21 has 5 cities or 5 Ghana cities and gives each three children 1.5 Ghana cedis as pocket money. How much is left for her? The options are below. Let's delve into it. Question. We know that from the data, the mother has 3 children, of which give 1 cedi 50 pesos or 1.5 cedis to each of them. But we know that the total, first thing is for us to note the actual amount that the mother, actual amount is 5 Ghana cedis. 5 Ghana cedis. And then number of children, we have 3 children. So then when you look at the total amount that she gave, according to the child that she gave to, total amount given would be the 1.5 Ghana cedis. So actually I didn't write that in the data. So we have the amount given to each child. amount per child. 1.5 Ghana cedis. So the total amount given, that is going to be the 1.5 GH cedis times the number of children. Then from this we know that the mother actually gave 4.5. Now it is now left, we've done the first part, knowing the actual amount given of the 5 cedi and mother. We're going to look for amount left. Amount left will be the actual amount the mother had minus the amount given. So look for the amount left. So this is going to be the 5 cedis minus the GH cedis of 4.5. So last we would have GH cedis of 0.5. So looking through the options, we realize that it's option B. Now we'll move on to the question 22. It says expand open close parenthesis of 2a minus b, and then another open and close parenthesis a minus b with the options below. Now for this, we know that it is under algebra where we have some solution 2a minus b, a minus b. This is under algebra removing brackets. So we know that every element of bracket A multiplies all the elements within brackets B. A and B, all those within bracket A will multiply all the members of bracket B. So that is to say that 2A multiply A, same as the same 2A would multiply B. In the same case, negative B is also going to multiply A, same as multiply B. So if you want to rewrite this, it's going to be 2A into bracket A minus B, A minus B into bracket A minus B. So finally, we are going to have the 2A times A, we are having 2A squared minus 2AB, that is the 2A times negative B. Move on to the next one. Negative B times A is going to give a negative AB, and negative B times negative B. Now for negative times negative is positive, so plus B squared. So look through the options. So this is our final. If there's nothing we can do, we leave it at that. But to realize that some of the members look alike, we have negative 2AB, there's 2AB, another AB. So in here, we're going to have 2A squared, negative 2AB minus AB, negative 3AB plus B squared. So this has been simplified to the very last one. There's nothing else that can be done, so we look through our options, we will see that it is option C. Option C. We also continue to our next, that is question 20. But Peter had 200 cedis and spent 83 cedis. What percentage of the money is left? The options below. Peter had 200 cedis. So Peter had 200 cedis. So Peter had 83 cedis. The answer is, what percentage of the money is left? So we look for amount left. will now be the actual amount to amount left, sorry, the actual amount minus the amount spent. So in the amount left, we're going to have the actual amount for Peter was $100 minus the amount that is spent on whatever he bought. So we see that we have 117 GH. So this is the amount left. And the action is to find the percentage of it, this amount that was left. So in that the percentage left would be the amount left over the actual amount by. So then we know the amount left after we purchased it, that we had 117 remaining, and we have 200. So this times this two zeros would cancel out, and then 2 into 117 give us 58.5%, or 58.50%. We looked at our options, we realized that that is option D. Let's move on to question 24. In this question, it says that we are using a data to find for 25, to answer 25, because 24, 25. And this is time and plot. And that shows the rate of cocoa buds weight. So let's take a moment to reflect on the uh, table, where for the first time, system 4 has how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 9. The index 4 has about 4 in the others. And 5 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whilst then 6 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7 stables are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we have for the eighth stable 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the last one is 2. When you add all of these, the total for the span or the length, we are going to have about 35. 35. So let's pay attention to this whilst we use that to solve. In here, each of them has weight in kilogram. So for each 10 for Lee would be 40, 45, 47, and 49. Whereas for the fifth term, by the time I leave out, you are going to have what? 51, 53, 54, 55, 57, 58. And for the sixth term, it's going to be 60, 62, 63, 64, 64, 64, another 64, 65, 66, and then 68. For the next one is 71, 72, 73. Then we have 74, 75, 78, 78, 79. And then for the eighth is 82, 83, 85, 86, and 81. Whereas the last one will be 94 and 95. Okay. So from what we can see here, we would realize that even before, because on the previous slides, the picture is not there. So let us assume we are being asked the modal weight. That's the one that appears most. From all these, you realize that the leaf that appears most as 4. And then by the stem and leaf plot in kilogram, that is going to be 64. Because we have 60, 62, 63. Whereas they have 64, 64, 64, 4 times. In looking through, that is the most you would find in any of the stems per kilogram. All right. And then we know our total number of leaves. When we single-handedly count the leaf, we would have 35. So now let's move on to question 24 and answer that. Say that what is the modal weight of the bags of cocoa? That is A, 60, 68, 65, and 64. So from this, as I mentioned earlier from the first slide, where the picture, the table was, realize that the bag that appears 4 times is 4 kg. The 4 appeared 4 kg 4 times. Thirdly, the sixth stem or stem 6 4 repeated itself. Plot have it as what in kilograms. So look 64. Look through, that is D, answer D. Now move on to question 25. So find the median weight of the bags. Find the median. So we know the median is actually the middle number for every sample size that we have by 2. By F over 2. And the median number we have by F over 2. But in this case, from our total number of leaves, we had 35. So for this case, knowing that per our rule, the median is an odd number, we add plus 1, so it becomes the 0 plus 1 over 2. So in here, our median will now be 35 plus 1 over 2. That's 36 over 2, and this is going to give us 18. So that means the median term, the median number will be the 18th term. The 18th. From the table, you'd realize that the sixth stem had most of or had the largest number of leaves displayed. So that is for the sixth stem. And if you had to arrange all the leaves in order, that is from the 40s through to the 90s. If you put them all together and you count, when we realize from the first two, from the 40s and then 50, all the leaves counted to 10. Whereas just the sixth term had 11 terms. So definitely the middle number or the middle term would be found within the sixth stem. You can play back and check the table. So for that table, when we look through and we counted from each until we get the 18th number, so from the 40 through to even the 6th step or even to the 90th, to the 90th kilogram section, when you count each one of them, you'd realize that it falls within the 6th step. And the 18th number would be 64. But in here was rated as 65. So if you count through, it's going to be 64 kg. That is A. Well, so move on to our next question, which is the 26th question. Because how many bags of cocoa were weighed in the week? How many bags of cocoa were weighed um, in the week? And then from the data I gave earlier, through it all, when we added everything under the leaf, like both stem and leaf, we had all coming as 35 when we added everything. When we counted each one of the bags weighed, we saw that it was 35. So that is T minus bracket negative bracket close plus bracket negative 10. A very clear case of board mass. So we have negative bracket so in here, we do with the brackets first. So whatever starts with 1 by, so let's multiply this bracket so we count negative times negative with positive. So we have negative 20. Then this positive also multiplies with bracket, so negative times positive is negative, so we have negative 10. When we simplify this, we now deal with the addition before the subtractions as per the board now. We have negative 15 plus 20. In this case, it's trying to tell you that you borrowed 15 and then you paid 20 off it. How much would be left, or how many would be left? You have borrowed 15 and paid 20. So in here, you know that you have a remaining instant of 5, then minus 10. Okay, going to have 10. Alright, so in here we have 5 minus 10, which are going to have negative 5. I'm sorry, in the options, both is C and D are 5, 5. One of them should be negative. So I'm sure one of them would have to be a negative, whether C or D. But the answer is negative 5. Alright, so moving on, go to our 28th question. Given that P is 3 and 8, find QP. So is 3 and 8, find. So in our PQ and 8, the answer is to find Q. So for if you want to find QP, You find or you take the negatives of p, or you find or take the negatives of p. And in this case would be negative p multiplying through by negative 1. So we know p cubed into bracket negative p and then p. So you have negative times negative p, you have negative times negative is positive, so you're going to have that, sorry, you're going to have 3 plus negative by the 8 is so therefore negative p cubed, or what we are looking for as qp, would be 3 and or qp equals to 3, sorry, 3 and negative 8 and 3 and negative 8. And that is our option D. Option D. A quadrilateral, which S not a quadrilateral. Now, when we look through the question, it says that each of them S not a quadrilateral. A quadrilateral from the word a quadrum or quad is 4 parts. Any shape that has 4 sides, 4 parts. So when you look through, when you see a parallelogram or parallelogram, it has a shape of something like this. That's A, B, that is 4 parts. So for parallelogram is a quadrilateral. A rhombus looks more or less like a kite. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, and then also what's a quadrilateral. For a triangle, which looks this way, this is 1, 2, 3. So for triangle has only 3 parts. So from even this, you realize that triangle is good. Look at a rectangle. So this a rhombus, a parallelogram, a triangle, and a rectangle. So for the rectangle also has 4 parts. So which clearly means that triangle is the right answer and it's not a quadrilateral. We move from our 29th question then on to our so our 30th question. Since the over 8 as a decimal fraction, 3 over 8 as a decimal fraction. That's a decimal fraction. We use the route of log division. We have 3 over 8. We are going to express that as a decimal fraction. So here we have our 8 divided by 3. You know that 8 definitely can go into 3, so per the rule of log division or division, we have 0 point. So our point now gives 80. So with this 0 point, right, 0 by. So now for 30, 80 can clearly go into it. Right. So 30 clearly for 8, the number of times Number of times 8 to go to 30 is 3 times. So we have 3 times 8 by 10, which is 20. Do subtraction. 24 from 30 gives it 4. Because of the same decimal point, that 8 from 0 to 6. Now, for 8 going into 60, that will be 7 times, because 8 by 7 to 6. We also subtract. And that gives us the decimal 0, 8 into 40, 8 5 plus 40, that's 0. So can we express it as a decimal? 3 over 8 is equal to 0.375. That is option B. Moving on to the next one. Factorize completely x y minus xm minus my plus m squared. Now this is in 4 parts. We have quadratic equation doing factorization. So we have x y minus my. You can see that most of the alphabets are elements repeating themselves, like x, n, and x, n, and n. So you can choose whichever one you want to group them to solve them. But since they are in 4 parts, it is easier for us to just group them in brackets, since we are about to factorize. So we have our first part being x and y minus x and n in one group, minus, then we have minus into bracket. Sorry. Then we have the next bracket, negative ny minus n squared. Now, unfortunately, if you look at both brackets and you want to factor, what we are going to get is to look through and see the most common factors within the bracket. So from the first bracket, whenever x repeats itself, so x will be factored out of the bracket. So x goes into itself once, and then remain 1. X in here, and then we have m. In the second bracket, we have m repeated itself. So we are going to have minus m out of the equation, where minus n goes itself once, same thing y. Then a negative n into positive n squared. Since it's double, we're going to have other remaining now becomes negative n. We multiply negative n by negative n will be a positive n squared. Now realize that both brackets that we have remaining are the same, so we pick one and then also group the ones out of the bracket. So we have the first bracket becoming all the outsiders. That is x minus n, and then all the insiders, since they are the same, we pick the next one as y minus m. Okay? So when we look at this, we look through our options and see which one fits perfectly. So we see that as y minus m, and then um, y minus m, and then x minus, sorry, x minus m, and then y minus m as our option C. They may look similar, so you pay critical attention to be able to get to your answer. So that's option C. For question 32. It says that Aja traveled 12 kilometers due north, right? She traveled 12 kilometers due north and 5 kilometers due east. 5 kilometers due east. So how far was she from her starting point? How far was she from her starting point? Without from this side, we realize that Aja's movement is more or less like a rectangle, right angled triangle. A right angled triangle. Moving due north and then due 5 due east. So vertically, she moved 12 k 5 k. So it looks like a right angled triangle. So since it looks like we have a hypotenuse and the two sides, we know the formula for each. So that would be from my starting point. So the distance to be the distance all squared to both parts. So the new north plus QE all squared. Okay. So we can just do that by saying d squared equal to 12 squared km plus 5 squared km. Yeah, this is going to be 44 km plus 25 km. This will give us 1 d squared becomes 169 km. Since we're looking for the distance from a starting point, how far should this be starting point? That becomes the squared square root of 169. So in this case, the power of 2 cancels the square root, but we know that d, 1 6 down, is a perfect root. So 13 by 13 is equal to 6 times 13k. So this is the principle of Pythagoras theorem. If you pay critical attention, when you draw her distance, you get to know that she was moving in a way of right angled triangle. So the answer here is 13 kilometers. That is A. So we move on to our next question. That's the 33rd question, or question 33. So for question 33, it says a certain number is subtracted from 12 and the result is multiplied by 3. If the answer is 21, find the number. A certain number is subtracted from 12 and the result is multiplied by 3. If the answer is 21, find the number. Now this is a word problem question. And it's telling us that a certain number. So from our data, if you are to write down any of these data, saying a certain number, so we can represent that certain number, since it's unknown, as x. And they say they subtracted from 12, so we have 12, and then we have something multiplied, that is by 3. So they are saying that this number, this x, is subtracting from, and not 12 from that number, but rather this number from 12. So when we want to write that expression, it becomes, say that certain number is subtracted from, so it is gotten out of 12. So it becomes 12 minus the x. So it means this x is actually drawing from 12. Saying that, so the result, if in case we are to subtract this, the result is multiplied by 3. So we put that in bracket and multiply it by 3. Since 12 minus the x would give us our result. So it's being multiplied by 3. Saying that if the answer is 21, then it means it has equal to. And saying that if the answer then is 21, we now have a complete equation we can now solve for. Algebra states that when you have a bracket, you remove the bracket. So this multiplies that, and then 3 also multiplies the x. So we have 36, 3 by 12 is 36 minus 3x equal to 21. So we are finding for x that number. So you have negative 3x standing alone. We have 21 minus 36. So we have negative 3x then we have 21 minus 36 being negative 15. We divide through by 3, and this also by negative 3. Negative cancels out. We have x is equal to this also cancels. We have 1 and then 5. So that it means that certain number that subtracted from 3 is 5. If we have to prove, we put that in the equation we had 3 into bracket 12 minus 5. Wherever we see x, we put 5. It's equal to 21. So we have 3 into bracket 7, and we know that 3 times 7 is 21. Okay, so this is just to a proof. Now we proceed to question 34. So the answer here, is D, 5. What's your question 34? It says that a football match starts at 2:20 p.m. and lasts for 1 hour and 50 minutes. At what time will the game end? It started at 2:20 p.m. and lasts for 1 hour 50 minutes. Okay? Alright. So we have 2:20 p.m. and then lasts for an hour. We know that for 2:20, it shows that 1 hour, this 2:20 shows that the 2 is the hour, whilst the 20 is the minute. The hour, and then this is the minute. So 2 hours, 20 minutes. But on the time is what? 2:20 p.m. And it says the game lasted for an hour. So if we add 1 hour to the 2 hours, that is of the time, the hour sign, we would have 3. And then for the 50 minutes to the 20, we are going to have 70 minutes. But in this case, we know that 60 minutes makes an hour, right? So for 70 minutes, what would that be? X. So we are going to have, so let's say that's 3 hours and then we have 70 minutes. We know that 60 minutes go to an hour. All right. So if you have 60 minutes being an hour, we can now add that hour within the minutes of 70 to the 3. So having 4. Then there'll be a remainder minute of 10 minutes. Since within the 70 minutes, 60 minutes is an hour. So we add that to this, becoming 4 hours, and then we have 10 minutes as a remainder. Okay, so this, if we want to write this as our time, it becomes 4:10. The time the game will end will be 4:10 p.m. 4:10 p.m. That is C. So move on to question 35. Is that given that 117 bracket 1 open and close parentheses 12 and 18 is equal to 117 equal to 15 plus k. Find the value of k. So move. Right. So we have 117 bracket 12 plus 18 equal to 117 bracket 15 plus k. We have been asked to find the value of k. Now, as board mass, to do with the bracket first. So we have 117 and 18 plus 12. In this case, since we can add 10 and k, we remove the brackets. That is becoming to be 1 18. Give us 175 plus 117 times k by 30 510 1500 plus 17 plus 117. Since we're looking for k, we make k the subject. So 3510. So we go through, so just simplify this. We're going to get 1755 again. That is 117. So divide through the 117. So k gives us 117 1755 15 times. So our k here is 15. That is to show you the B, C as the answer. Go to question 36. Question 36 says that if A is 2 and 3 and B is A is 2 and negative 3 and B is negative 2 and 3, find A plus B. So they're giving us 2 times plus A being 2 negative 3 and B is negative 2 and 3. And the answer is to find a plus b. So for a plus b would be 2 plus -2, and we have -3 plus 3. And we know that if a plus b, 2 plus -2 is going to be 2 minus 2, and then -3 by plus 3 is going to give us 0. So at the end, a plus b, -2 minus 2 will give us 0, and then the above is 0. So both would give us 0, 0, or 0 and 0. So it means the answer C. So to question 38. So take a time and reflect on this. You can skip back, watch it to understand. So 37, we have solve equal to 1 over 2 2 x plus 2. That's close and open and close parentheses. So in solving this, we have 1 over 2. So in simplifying this, we are looking for x. We have x minus 1. This is also over 1, so you can also say we have x plus 2 all over 2. Since we know this is multiply through by 2, 2 multiply both sides by 2 by 2. So 2 cancels by 2, and then we have 2 multiplied. So we simplify by 2 to bracket x minus 1 and x plus 2. So it's 2 cancelled out. Open the bracket by way of 2 x plus 2. Now put like this x on one side and all the numbers also on the other. X minus x, since x crosses becomes negative, negative 2 crosses negative, it becomes positive 2. So in this case, we are going to have x and then here 4. So x value for this side is 4. Now we go to question 39. The same repeated here as they say the point P point S is 4 and P as projected in axis. Find the coordinates of the image of X. So we are doing question 30. So we have the point S, 4, 3, as reflected. Now, if we have, image of reflection, we have our graph, or we draw this, we want to transform S. Say this was reflected to X, so we definitely know we being on the positive side, found themselves at the positive region of the graph. So being reflected to the y-axis definitely is going to move on to your left, right? Which in this case, when we flip, is going to be on the negative side, where the x-axis will now become negative, x-axis becomes negative, and then y still maintains to be positive. So when we reflect this as 4 and then 3, we know that 4 is the x-axis and then 3 is the y-axis. So being flipped to the other end, definitely 4 is now going to become negative 4, whilst 3 maintains to be 3. So the reflection of point S on the y-axis becomes negative 4 and 3. That is our answer C. So we now move on to our final question, that is question 40. We have it mixed up, but let's continue solving it. So we have for this 5 bracket. So I'm sure that was question 38 instead. But I read 39. So that was question 38 for the previous. So kindly pardon me. That's question 30. So for question 39, it says solve 5x minus open and close parenthesis 7x minus 3, and then we have less or equal to 9. 5x, this is bracket 7, less or equal to 9. So there's an inequality question. So we are now going to have 5x. You know, this x multiplies the bracket. So we are going to have minus 7x. And this negative multiplying negative thing becomes positive 3. Negative multiplying x and negative 3 becomes positive 3. Then less or equal to 9. We simplify and group like terms. You know the 5x minus 7x would give us negative 2x. Right? And then we have when the positive three causes were equal to sorry, the inequality sign, it becomes 9 minus 3. We have negative 2x less or equal to 6. We are going to divide through by negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, and then x. But now, note, whenever you divide through by a negative in an inequality, the symbol or the inequality sign will now change to the other end, or will now flip. So in this case, we divided through by this, it now changes to become greater or equal to, now the x becomes greater or equal to, this goes itself 1, and then 3, so we have negative 3. Note that for inequality, when you divide through by negative, the resultant answer or the inequality sign will now change to the opposite. That is, in this case, we now from uh, less or equal to greater or equal to. So we look through answers and we realize that the answer is A. So I want to move to question 40 itself, the final question, our last question. Which of the following is the largest set? We have A, natural numbers, composite, integers, and whole numbers. Now, we want to solve this question. We will now have to know what natural numbers are. The natural numbers, in this case, the set of natural numbers starts from 1 and not 0. So 1, 2, 3 onwards. And then for composite numbers, the set of numbers that has two factors. Okay, they have two factors. Two factors. Whereas the integers, in this case, are both positive and negative numbers, or positive and negative whole numbers. And then for whole numbers, we are having counting from 0, 1, 2, etc. So now when we compare all these things, all this set of numbers, natural, composite, integers, and whole, when you look through them, you'd realize that integers would be the one that will carry the largest set. Why? Because it comprises both the negative numbers and the positive, so it will have a larger sample size or larger set numbers. Whereas the other one just starts from a point and just moves on. For integers, they have the negative side and the positive side. So when you blend the two, realize that it becomes a very large set. So in this case, the answer would be integers, that are C. Now we come to the very end of this 2022 mathematics past question, objective solutions. Kindly try and solve these questions all over again yourself for maximum understanding. If something is not clear, kindly skip back or preview back and then rewatch the video to understand the particular question you are solving. Do it as many times as you want for maximum understanding. These questions cover a large or wide range of questions, which I believe in trying your hands on each one of them opens your thoughts or your mind to all the topics within, or majority topics within your math textbook. Kindly go through them, solve that again. All the best in your exams and in your BECE. Thank you very much. My name is Derek, and I was a tutor for the day. Thank you.